Coming up on this episode of DL Weekly, a last hurrah for the holiday season at Disneyland, a review of New Year's at the park, an update on upcoming refurbs,
a new technology patent goes through, we talk to former cast member and author Austin, and more. DL Weekly starts now.
Howdy, partners. For your safety, remain seated with your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the podcast. And be sure to watch your ears. If any of you folks are wearing hats or glasses, best remove them, because Tag and Teresa have the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Hello and welcome to this episode of DL Weekly for the week of January 5th, 2022. I'm producer James.
And I'm Teresa Urban. It's official weekly tiers like Andra K, Christy J, Stephanie S, who ensure that DL Weekly can happen every week. We have an amazing community of Disneyland fans that are ready to meet you, hear your experiences, share your knowledge, and share all they have to offer with you. Head on over to dlweekly.net/support to join the community.
And if you enjoy listening to the show, please consider rating and reviewing the show on your podcast app. It helps other Disney fans become weekly tiers and part of our community. The holidays are coming to an end soon, but one holiday treat just arrived at Disneyland. The Holiday Dole Whip is now available at the Tropical Hideaway for $6.79. This version is a swirl of cherry and lime Dole Whip with festive sprinkles and a gummy on top. The flavor has been described like cherry limeade, being a bit sour and very sweet.
I'm both very excited about this news and also very upset about this news because this was on our treat list. We really wanted to try this when we were there in the beginning of December, but it just now is making its appearance. So if anyone else had this on their holiday treat list, now is your time. I'm curious, though, because the holidays are supposed to be wrapping up on the 9th. If this is going to probably stick around a little bit longer since it made such a late arrival, it'll be interesting.
That'd be great if it's a while supplies last, because it is pretty to look at. Like, I'm really impressed with that gummy, especially on top. It's just
sounds
icing.
Delicious. Cherry and lime.
I feel like
Yum.
any Dole Whip gets that reaction out of you.
I mean, yes. Let's be honest. Well, in Disney California Adventures Paradise Gardens, guests can celebrate Three Kings Day from January 3rd through the 9th. Special decorations and photo ops will be in the area to experience.
I had no idea what Three Kings Day was before the story, so I am thrilled that I got to learn a little bit about it.
Yeah,
Tell
us more about what Three Kings Day is.
It's basically a big cultural thing in Hispanic and Latin regions, and they just kind of celebrate it as part of the Christmas festivities, because January 6th, when they celebrate it, is essentially the 12th day of Christmas as we come to know it.
Oh.
And so it's the big day of potentially of Jesus' birth. There's a lot more to it that I didn't have time to fully understand, let alone live in that culture. So I'm sure I'm not perfectly spot on with a lot of this.
I think it's so cool that they're doing all these extra things. I mean, this is just a short period of time that they're celebrating this. So it's something that they could very easily as a company be like, yeah, we're not going to like invest that much in this. It's just a quick little thing. But still, the fact that they're doing it, I think is so cool. That Paradise Gardens area has easily become one of my favorite parts of California Adventure now, because there's always something new and fun and exciting happening back there. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, and even if it's just a simple photo op, it's been worth it to make a stop there every time to really just see it. It's something that changes. So I agree with you. Super cool use of the space. Salt and Straw in Downtown Disney is added again with more new flavors. This time they are all vegan as well. The new flavors are inspired by cupcakes with flavors like carrot cake with cream cheese frosting, coconut cream pie with lemon curd, chocolate salted caramel, rainbow sprinkled baby cakes, and a chocolate hazelnut cupcake option.
I have not tried Salt and Straw. We keep saying we're going to try, and next trip we're going to stop by, but we keep
next time
not. Yeah, we keep not, just for whatever reason. We're either full because we just ate, or we're rushing to the next thing, but we've never actually stopped at Salt and Straw. But man, I tell you, every time they come out with, well, maybe not every time, let's be honest, they have some interesting flavors sometimes, but they always have there's nothing on this list that I wouldn't try, I don't think.
I think that's the key, is like it's ambitious always, but there's always one that a person's going to be like, yep, that's going to fit for me. And for me, I just can't help but eye up the chocolate salted caramel. I love those flavor combinations, and I'm just on board with that for sure.
Well, the cool thing about this too is that they're all vegan. I am not a vegetarian. I am not vegan, but I have enjoyed so many of the vegetarian and vegan offerings in the Disneyland Resort that it's really opened my eyes, which I think is great. So this, usually before I'd be like, oh, I don't know, especially being from Wisconsin, ice cream that doesn't have real milk in it. I don't know if it, does that count? But I would, in a heartbeat, try any of these.
You're so right. And I think about that too with some of the gluten-free options we've tried too. It's really opened the option for me of being willing, even next time when we go to Pim Test Kitchen, I'm probably going to try that Impossible Meatball. Just try something totally different that I'm not going to normally try at home. And because these options exist. And that's something that I can say as a person who doesn't live that lifestyle. So people that are vegan are probably even more pumped.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Love Pop in downtown Disney had a bit of a rough opening just before Christmas and then was closed for a couple of days after. The new shop is open daily now and offers pop-up greeting cards with intricate designs. They also offer a line of Disney cards, but beyond that, they are just a unique greeting card store.
And their cards are so cool. Seeing them in person is, I want to stop there next time we're there.
They're works of art. I mean, it's hard for me to say that they're just it's this little card. No, they're so much more than just a regular greeting card. It's hard to even say that that's what they are.
Yeah. And I think about it too, working professionally in a creative field, about the intricacies of the design that has to go in that to make it work, to make the colors and everything stand up just right. Those are high level details that I think are super cool. And I love that there is the Disney brand associated with it, that you can really get some of those to really sell it.
Definitely. So if Love Pop is not a company or something that you've seen before, you definitely need to stop down at the shop in downtown Disney just to peruse. You don't have to buy anything. You have to go check these out. They are just so fun and so unique.
Right. Well, this year, guests had a much better experience at the resort for the New Year celebration. With the reservation system being in place, the parks never closed their gates to guests, and the crowds were pretty manageable. Fireworks were launched over Paradise Bay at DCA and over Sleeping Beauty Castle on Main Street to ring in the new year. Stages were set up around the park to host DJs for the evening.
So, you know me, my ever-growing Disney bucket list. Seeing photos and seeing the descriptions of New Year's Eve at Disneyland, now I have a new thing added. We got a couple of things checked off last month, but I'm just adding more stuff. This looked and sounded like so much fun. I think this is what Disneyland is, right? You've got, of course, the amazing characters, the wonderful cast members, the attractions, all that, what the theme park is. You got that, but this, to me, is what sets them apart, is having these extra events that make it transform this already magical place into something more incredible to celebrate certain things. So holiday times. But I mean, New Year's Eve, come on, how fun is this?
New Year's is always a party. So the fact that they embrace it and turn the park into a party is just such a cool thing. I think about, I don't remember if it was Disney World or Universal Orlando, so you're going to have to forgive me on this, but they had a party set up on one of their parks. And I want to say it was one of the Disney World parks where the characters would come out and dance and go with you into the night. And it was just something kind of different, a good place for maybe teenagers to get dropped off while adults or kids went around to other places. So having these kind of events, I think, are neat and something that a lot of people can really just embrace. And especially if there's a variety of DJs going around, that's really neat for me.
Well, yeah, that's the other cool thing, too. It's not just we're having a party, but you have to be in front of the castle. Oh, no, we're having multiple parties, so you can hop over to, the whatever it was, 5 or so different stages. And it was happening in both parks, so it wasn't you had to be all crowded in just Disneyland or just DCA to experience this. So I think it would have been so much fun to have been there and kind of bop around to all of the different individual parties to really celebrate and ring in the new year.
Yeah. I worry about you though with the bucket list thing, because does that mean you're gonna need 2 New Year's Eves so you can watch the fireworks over Paradise Bay and over Sleeping Beauty Castle?
Apparently, yeah. And then I'm gonna need multiple so I can do the countdown at each different stage too.
Oh yes. This is gonna be tough for you.
This is a multi-year endeavor I think I've gotten myself on now. Magic Key holders will have an updated location to dine soon. The Magic Key Terrace will be closing mid-January to add some more colorful elements, replace the furniture, and update the lighting fixtures. This update should really liven the place up and make it a more comfortable place to take a break and have a drink or even a bite to eat.
This looks so cool. I love these color additions.
It looks gorgeous.
I haven't eaten there. I know that you have at some point, or at least been up there. And just seeing it, I'm like, it's a cool space. But then seeing what they're adding to it with kind of those tiles that are kind of like luminescent or translucent or something, like, ooh, it's pretty.
Yeah, we have a link in our show notes because Mice Chat in their article this week had photos of the concept art, which I actually hadn't seen anywhere else. So I was really excited to like visualize what this was looking like. But man, it was interesting because seeing how they're transforming the space versus what it is today, I didn't realize how kind of plain it currently is.
Right.
But now compared to what they're going to do, it's like, oh, wow, yeah, there's not much going on. The thing right now, though, that the big draw for me anyways to go up there was because of the views. You're on the second story and you're looking out over Cars Land, over, different areas of DCA. So like the view, the whole thing for me was the view. I think that's why I didn't notice that there wasn't tons of color going on in the space itself. But
I can see why that would be easy to get distracted. Even just in that concept art, seeing the Incredicoaster in the background, I'm like, yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. I mean, and if you're at one of the tables, like right next to the ledge, then you're definitely not going to be looking inside much. But it's also set up so that they kind of are wanting you to look out. That's like the whole thing. But yeah, this is definitely plussing this space, in my opinion. It looks so fun.
Yeah, a great reward for Magic Key holders for sure. Also, the Disneyland Hotel is getting some updates that are very magical. Carpet has been replaced near Goofy's kitchen and now features designs inspired by Sleeping Beauty. The new carpet looks like it jumped right off the screen and onto the floor of the hotel.
I seriously, I can't. This carpet is gorgeous. Like, it sounds ridiculous to be this excited about carpeting, but dang, it's amazing. Disneyland needs to, like, the hotel needs to, like, keep it, like, blocked off so people aren't, like, dirtying it up because it's that beautiful.
I suppose that doesn't work with the wedding dress so well, does it?
No. But man, it's gorgeous. But it makes, when I first saw it, I was just like amazed at how beautiful it was. And then I was kind of like, well, I don't really, why specifically this scene? Why Sleeping Beauty? And then I remembered at Destination D23 that they held in Florida, a month or so back, they were showing what the new tower rooms were going to look like. And the new tower rooms drew inspiration from Sleeping Beauty. So
that makes
sense. Yep,
I had the same thought. I'm like, this is out of place because it just seems so weird with everything else around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the rest of the feel of the hotel is kind of more of a mid-century modern kind of feel. So, I mean, yes, of course, classic Disneyland stuff, but specifically why this animated feature? I think it's a tie-in to the new tower,
which is cool. I'm on board with tie-ins.
Listeners who have tickets for Villains Night or Star Wars Night that were rescheduled, this message is for you. Be sure to call Disneyland at the number in our show notes before January 8th to exchange your tickets for the rescheduled nights in 2022. There are other options available as well, such as a refund, so be sure to act fast.
I'm so sad about Star Wars Night.
So I actually just had to call because we had tickets to both Star Wars Night for all four of us. It was myself, Tag, James, and Vern were all going to attend Star Wars Night in 2020. And then Tag and I had tickets to Villains Night, also was supposed to be early 2020. So I had to call. I tell you, I don't know if I just happened to call at the correct time. It was a total of 10 minutes from the time I picked up the phone to the time I took the survey and hung up that I was on the phone. So I had a very short wait. My cast member was super helpful. If you do have tickets and you are trying to figure out how to do this, fear not. Do not frantically search through your email like I did. I was only able to find the email for Villains Night. I couldn't find our Star Wars Night tickets at all. So the cast member was great and was able to look it up for me. All she needed was my name and my Disney account information, and poof, there they were. So we are sadly having to get ours refunded because the new dates just don't work with our schedule this time around. Hopefully they'll offer it again and we can go.
Yeah, so for everyone who's going to Star Wars Night, have extra fun for me. I'll be there soon.
I'll be there soon. I know. I was kind of bummed because one of the days is May 4th. That would have been.
It's so perfect.
That would have been so great. But yeah, unfortunately, the timing just was not working out for us this year.
Nope. An after-hours tradition returns to Disneyland this year for the first time since the start of the pandemic. Grad Nights will kick off on May 13th this year with dates until June 17th. The party will take place at Disney California Adventure from 9 p.m. till 2 a.m. with characters dressed in their graduation best for photo ops, along with food and beverage specials. There are 3 ticket options, with the $89 party-only ticket being the cheapest. There's also a DCA and party ticket for $119 and a park hopper and party ticket for $179. For a complete list of the dates, we have a link in our show notes.
You know, pricing-wise, that's surprising to me that it's only $30 extra for a park ticket in addition to the party ticket. We've kind of gotten accustomed to like the after-hours events, the like Villains Night, Star Wars Night, Marius Nights, being much
another park ticket.
yeah, if not more. So the fact that the baseline for this is $89, then if you want to add, the day, it's only additional $30. I'm very happy to see that they're keeping this more reasonable so that grads can, have more of a chance to be able to go and celebrate at the parks. Super fun.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Definitely still pricey for a lot of people, but I think the fact that it is that accessible and hopefully people could go and have a day with their friends at the park before the party is super neat. Has me thinking back to my high school graduation where we had a party at the local athletic club. Nothing to rave about compared to a Disneyland trip.
Right. Yeah. I don't even think we had a party. So there's that. There's that. But yeah, I think it's really cool to see that. Yeah. I mean, like you said, James, yes, $89 is still a lot of money. But unfortunately, when you look at it in terms of what Disney usually charges, I'm glad that they discounted it or kept it at a reduced rate for this.
Yeah, and we can also celebrate it's another thing coming back that Disney has done that people have enjoyed. And so I think more and more of what we've expected in the past is going to keep coming and hopefully keeps on being improved with things that we've learned.
Yes. Well, and something that we didn't have in the news this week that we should mention with things that are looking promising for things coming back. The World of Color Lagoon has been filled.
Oh.
The platforms, the fountain platforms have been resubmerged. They are still working on the towers, the projection towers that are in the back, but that's looking better.
That's
exciting. It looks like both the Mark Twain and the Columbia are going to be going under refurb soon. So that's looking like that might be hopefully something to do with them getting ready for Fantasmic coming back. So we'll see. This might just be my wishful thinking, but I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful.
I'm with you. I'm ready for those to be back.
Yes. Possible trigger warning for myself and for those who participate in the Minnie the Main attraction merchandise line. We now have a new crazy attraction, a new crazy merch set coming. Mickey, the Main attraction, is coming with a new release every month in 2022. The January set will be themed to Space Mountain. Might sound familiar because that was also Minnie, the Main attraction's first attraction to feature. February is rumored to be Pirates of the Caribbean. The collection should go on sale this month on shopdisney.com. May the odds be in your favor.
I mean, let's just ask the obvious question, Teresa. Are you going to be jumping in line for these?
No, I can't put myself through that again. I just cannot. I just cannot. The other thing I noticed, though, James, I don't know if you took a look. We have a link in our show notes with a sneak peek, but the backside of the ears, they show what the Space Mountain ears are going to look like. It says Walt Disney World 50th on it. So I'm wondering. Yeah, so I'm wondering if these are all going to be more geared towards Walt Disney World attractions. So we might, even though we have seen sneak peeks of Space and Pirates, which are attractions at both parks, I wonder if we're going to be getting maybe Walt Disney World specific attractions for this release.
I feel like that could make sense because last time it was very Disneyland focused, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so why not play to both parks? And since it is the anniversary year, you're probably spot on with that.
I'm curious. We'll have to wait and see. But again, I can't put myself through the craziness again. But I wish those of you, all the best that want and need this merchandise. It'll be interesting because right now it's just going to be on Shop Disney. As you all remember, Minnie, the main attraction merchandise, released both in the parks and on Shop Disney. So it'll be interesting to see if this will be limited to just Shop Disney or if long-term maybe some of this merchandise will be coming out in the parks as well.
Yeah, and I'll be excited to see the weekly tier shared in our little community chat as well. There will definitely be some excited faces there.
We have moral support in our shop. We support each other in our shopping channel, especially on these release dates when we're stuck in the virtual rating rooms for what feels like an eternity.
Yep.
So yeah, we're there for moral support for each other and to entertain each other. It doesn't feel as bad when you don't feel like you're the only crazy person waiting to get these things.
Oh, so true. Disney parks have been granted a patent for technology that allows guests to experience 3D worlds without 3D glasses. The patent is for a virtual world simulator that enables multiple users to experience a 3D virtual world from multiple vantage points without any glasses, goggles, or digital devices. This is so cool.
I cannot wrap my brain around this. So this was from an article that the OC Register posted. Again, of course, link's going to be in the show notes. I read it earlier today, and I actually just reread it before recording, and I still am just like, how is this going to work? I mean, yeah, I'm just really curious, really excited to see if we get this in the parks, what it's going to be like to experience it. There was something in the article that made more sense to me to kind of like figure out, well, how can you have this, virtual thing without any sort of goggles or glasses or anything? But projections on the castle, how they do that, and it makes like the castle look like it's bouncing, or like it makes like the castle look like the paint's more shimmery or whatever. I'm guessing this technology might be to enhance projections like that. So like projections on Main Street, projection on the castle, that sort of thing. That's my guess. That's kind of what they were kind of talking about in the OC Register, and that made the most sense to me. So we'll see. I could, again, be completely off. It'd be cool. What? Maybe they're going to put it in like things like World of Color, and you can like be more like immersed in nighttime spectaculars, not just fireworks shows.
That's going to be so cool. Like taking projection mapping, like you're talking about, one step beyond is probably a really good way to go about it. I'm just excited that it won't require like silly goggles or glasses or anything. I feel like that's always been something that's kind of hurt me in a lot of the immersion stuff when I've had to use those. That's something that I've always complained about whenever we've done a lot of the Universal stuff, because they bought into that really fast. And it's like 3D goggles. And sometimes they work out really nicely. But sometimes they're there for the sake of being there. And so the idea of just having it exist for these immersive things, especially if you're talking like nighttime spectaculars, which seems like a really good place for that to work.
Well, and I was just thinking too, like, think of the times we live in, right, with masks. Wearing 3D goggles with masks now is much more of a challenge because you've got the, the fogging up and that sort of thing. So like imagine being able to experience like Star Tours without the goggles. No idea. This is just us just kind of like spinning off random ideas and thoughts. No idea if this is what this technology is going to be used for, but there's a lot of, I didn't really understand it and like couldn't wrap my brain around it, but I can see how there's potential.
I had to laugh at the article because one of the things they mentioned was this is like the next step to the metaverse. And later on, folks listening will get to meet one of our exchange students this year. And we have a second one who is super hyped about all things metaverse and future that it could bring. And so I'm like, if this is a next step for that, is he going to become a Disneyland fan real quick?
There you go. Well, for those of you that have been wanting to watch the Imagineering story again, but maybe don't have Disney Plus, if you are a Disney Forward subscriber, check your email for a chance to watch the first episode on Wednesday, January 5th. So like today, if you're listening, again, 6 p.m. Pacific time, no Disney Plus subscription is required.
Cool to have a watch along.
So we were talking, James and I were talking before we were recording, and I said, I'll put this in the episode, but I was kind of surprised that this made it to the news because when I was very excited. I opened my email and I saw that we had a Disneyland Forward update, and I'm like, ooh, what are they going to tell us? Are they going to tell us, give us something exciting? And Yeah, something like give me something exciting, progress on what your like more plans are for Disneyland Forward, or whatever. What are your next steps? Something. And I saw that it was, you can watch the first episode of the Imagineering story on this one day. I was just like, what? What? you what? I was so like, it was like I sprinted headfirst in a wall. I was so excited, and then I was like, what just happened? And then I was like, they just emailed this out to how many people?
Yeah.
And then the other thing too, let's face it, if you're somebody that's super excited and interested about the Disneyland Forward project, that you subscribe to get the update emails, you're also probably one that already has Disney Plus and can watch the Imagineering story whenever you feel like it. And me, personally, I'm on my second go-around right now watching it again because it is just that good of a show. But yeah.
And especially the short notice that comes with it. By the time this podcast launches, if people listen to it like right away, you have 8 hours to fix your schedule.
Psst! Avast there! It'd be too late to alter course, mateys. You come seeking questions and long-lost Disney information, eh? Sure, you come to the proper place. But keep a weather eye open, mates, and hold on tight, with both hands, if you please. There be squalls ahead, and James and Vern waiting for them what don't answer correctly.
Well, since I have ventured out of Trivia Land this week, we need a substitute. And for those who have been listening to this podcast for over 2 years, you may remember it's not the first time that this has happened. 2 years ago, we had a special guest trivia question, Kacper. You may remember Kacper taking my Polish son, exchange student, I guess, technically. And so we're doing it again. And so this time you get to meet our son from Moldova. Ion is joining us. Say hi.
Hi.
Usually, when we have people on for the first time, we ask them your Disney story, but you have yet to see Disneyland, right?
Yep.
Are you excited to potentially see Disneyland?
Sure do. I got high reviews about it, so...
Can't imagine where you got those from.
I know.
Why don't you ask us some questions, and we'll see how I do. And then Teresa can give us all the right answers.
You're jinxing me now.
Oh, I hope not.
No pressure. No pressure.
So, first question. Who is the captain of the Star Speeder on Star Tours? R2-D2, Captain EO, Andor, C-3PO, or Rex?
I have faith in you, James.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it ends up being C-3PO. Though I would love Rex to end up being the captain, because that would be an even more hilarious journey. All right.
I'm going to agree with you and say our captain for the journey is C-3PO.
Love it. All right. What's our second question?
Which attraction did Winnie the Pooh's adventure replace?
Ooh, that's a good one.
This is a good one because I definitely don't know it.
You don't? We're gonna when we're there in the spring, I'm gonna have to show you the Easter egg that is hidden in there.
Oh, thank you. That's all you needed to hear. It's the Country Bear Jamboree, because they're hanging up in the sides there. Yes.
Perfect.
That's it.
Yes, Country Bear Jamboree.
All right, what's our third question?
How many audio animatronics are on the ride Pirates of the Caribbean, including people and animals?
Oh my gosh.
Can we just answer a lot?
Oh, good. We have multiple choice.
Oh, good.
37, 78, 128, 42, 97.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if that helped or not. I mean, I probably would have guessed.
What were they again?
37, 78, 128, 42, 97.
Ooh. What's your gut telling you?
I probably would have guessed over 200 without the multiple choice.
There are a lot of chickens in there.
Oh, I didn't even think about that part of it. So, there was like a 97 option, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll go with 97.
You go with 97? I'm going to go 128.
All right, ambitious. I like it.
It's all those chickens.
All right, what's our last question?
Other than alcohol, you can purchase this in the park. Fake swords, gum, pickles, Coke, Monte Cristos.
I love it, Monte
what we
Cristo.
can't buy in the park?
You can't buy in the park.
Okay. I actually feel confident about this one. I'm pretty sure it's bubble gum because Walt didn't want it on any of the streets.
I agree. It is gum. They're trying to save their cleaning crew some time.
You are so good to me until you tear me down after the discussion topic, I'm sure. So with a bit of Disney magic now, I am going to disappear and Tag is going to come back. And we're going to have a great little discussion topic between him, Teresa, and our special guest.
So for this week, we have a former Disneyland cast member, author, and podcast host with us today. So welcome, Austin. We are very excited to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
So we're going to start like we always do with our questions that we ask all of the guests that we have come on here to kind of get everybody acquainted with who you are if they don't know you already. So tell us your Disney story. What got you interested in Disney or Disneyland? You can be as detailed or as brief as you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. So even though I wrote a Disneyland history book, I actually grew up going to Disney World because I am from Florida. So I grew up going to Disney World in the 90s with my grandma who lived in Orlando. And I really just fell in love with theme parks. So when it came time to choose an undergraduate institution for college, I decided to go where else but Chapman University, which is right next to Disneyland. So started as an annual pass holder at Disneyland. So I actually didn't go to Disneyland until very late, until 2012,
Oh, wow.
which is pretty crazy considering it's, 2021, and I've written the book about it. I was really passionate as an annual pass holder and then decided to get a job at Disneyland where I worked in Fantasyland attractions, Toontown attractions for like 1 or 2 days, and then guest relations for the majority of my time. So I spent a lot of time in City Hall.
Oh, wow.
Oh, we're going to have a lot of questions about that, I'm sure.
Very, very cool. Like, I always feel I have like the biggest respect for guest relations cast members because I feel like at times that job has to have like super great highs and also super great lows. So my heart goes out to all of our guest relations cast members because I feel like that's a very rewarding but also very difficult position at the parks.
A lot of people don't know that guest relations is actually considered a professional cast member. So similar to a lead or a manager, and we have different HR. So sometimes people would have the assumption that we were also making minimum wage and high schoolers. And then I would look across the counter and see someone that is studying to be a doctor, someone that has a grad degree in literary science.
Wow,
and I'm like, yeah, we're a pretty accomplished group over here.
We're not just fresh out of high school, don't know what we're doing. Yeah, wow.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So when you visit Disneyland or the Magic Kingdom, depending on where you're visiting now, on your first day, which way do you like to go? Do you like to go left towards Adventureland, forward through the castle to Fantasyland, hang right to Tomorrowland? How do you like to kind of attack the park?
So I really do like to attack by going towards Adventureland, but a lot of my strategies are pre-Galaxy's Edge.
Oh,
so
sure.
I'm not quite sure how Galaxy's Edge has really affected this because when I was there for Avengers opening day last time I was there, and that was a completely different strategy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say, I go to Adventureland and I go straight for either Indiana Jones or Jungle Cruise, because as we'll find out in a second, Jungle Cruise is my favorite. I like to be on the first boat because then you get a fun chant, first boat, and it really annoys people.
I didn't know that was a thing.
I didn't know that was a thing either.
Like adding to my Disney bucket list as we speak here.
Well, Teresa was sad because when we were there in December, she got the first Dole Whip in the morning, but it wasn't at the Dole Whip stand. Yeah. It was at the Tropical Hideaway. And they're like, yeah, they only give that at the stand.
There's a button. So if you get the first Dole Whip of the day, there's a special button that they give to the person that orders it. And so we were the first, we didn't even know if Tropical Hideaway is open. We actually walked past the Dole Whip stand in front of the tiki,
and that was closed.
The tiki room, and it was actually closed. So we just kept going. We're like, well, maybe Tropical Hideaway's open. So we walked in, and they were actually wiping counters down and stuff for, and just like, oh, hey, are you open yet? And they're like, oh, They looked at their watch like, yep, we are now, or whatever. So I got my Dole Whip, and as we were checking out, I said, I just have to ask. I said, is this like a myth, or is this actually a thing? She's like, oh, it is, but they only give it out at the actual stand. I'm like, dang it. That's okay. I know I had the first. Dole Whip. I know I had the first Dole Whip of the day, so it's fine. Yes, and
you
exactly.
Have a first
I had
Dole
my Dole
Whip of the day button in your heart.
I should have gone to City Hall and gotten my own I'm celebrating button. Just wrote it on there. I could have, but I didn't think that. I didn't think about it.
So you kind of talked about this, but I guess we could get like why that is. So what is your favorite attraction and why?
So Jungle Cruise is my favorite attraction. I kind of buried the lead there. But yes, Jungle Cruise is my favorite attraction. I think I'm going to get a little sentimental here. Jungle Cruise really embodies kind of the Disneyland story. It's an attraction that everyone really, enjoys and is close to a lot of Disney fans' hearts, but it's actually changed several times. Obviously, most recently, when it, changed to get rid of some pretty nasty natives depictions. But previously, it's changed a lot as well. It was originally a serious ride and it was kind of bad in that it was serious. So that's actually why they changed it to a more comedic ride. Almost every major Imagineer at Disneyland has worked on this ride at some point. So I just think it's a really special ride. And I'm so glad that it, continues to delight, new children and new Disney fans every year.
Do you think you could be a skipper?
I really wanted to be a skipper. I really wanted to get Adventureland attractions. And then they put me in Fantasyland. And I was like, that's fine. I'm going to be a storybook skipper, which is another one of my favorite rides. And instead they put me in Toontown. That's why I was only in Toontown for 1 or 2 days.
You're like, this is not a good fit here. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, being such a Jungle Cruise fan, did you see the movie and what did you think?
I did see the movie.
I'm like, did you see it? Of course you did. So what did you think?
I thought it was fun. I wish that they wouldn't have relied so much on like the supernatural. I think it could have just been really fun just with Emily Blunt and The Rock just going through the jungle. I don't know if they really needed what were they, like pirates that came to life from a supernatural thing or something.
Yeah.
Or conquistadors. That's an interesting thought there.
Why did they do Pirates of the Caribbean? Because they kind of did that brought back to life thing. But Pirates was very successful, so I assume that they were just like, yeah, we'll do it for Jungle Cruise.
This is ridiculous, but my I think favorite part of the movie, and I feel like you can appreciate this, Austin, was the chunk of movie before they even got to the title, which was The Rock giving his tour and having all the like little nods to the attraction. I thought was so fun.
Yeah, I thought the movie was really good until they got on the boat.
Until they got on the boat. That's awesome.
I saw, this is kind of off topic, but I saw a meme that somebody posted, I think it was like yesterday, and it was 4 pictures of The Rock.
Oh.
Dressed in like khakis and stuff, and with like in a jungle thing, and they go, these photos are from 4 different movies that The Rock is in. But he's good in that role. Like, he was good in the Jungle Cruise. I thought he was great in Jumanji, the Jumanji movies. I even am... James gives me so much grief for this. I am considering watching the Fast and Furious movies because I liked Hobbs and Shaw, which had him in it, and it's kind of a spinoff, and I was like, maybe I actually won't hate these movies as much as I thought, because like cars and stuff aren't my thing. But I did download them. I do have them to watch. I just need to start watching them. So I'll report back at some point when I have time. I don't have any time, but...
There you go. So I am so excited to talk about your new book, Fast Pass to the Past, The Junior Historian's Guide to Disneyland. Now, I want to let everybody know, Austin told me it is not just for the junior historians, it's for all of us Disneyland lovers out there. It sounds so fun, and it just released, didn't it? Earlier, there on December 1st?
Yep, December 1st.
That's so exciting, right before the holidays. How exciting. So you have the podcast. You were a former Disneyland cast member. What made you decide to write a book about Disneyland? I find it so cool that people take the time to research to put these things out there for the rest of us to enjoy.
Yeah. So I think it really harkens back to when, I was a guest relations cast member and I was working City Hall. I had the opportunity to, meet a lot of, young Disney fans, and they were always so eager to learn some cool piece of trivia or to learn like how this place ended up here. And I worked there during the 60th anniversary. So we were giving out a lot of like 60 badges and things like that. And kids were just really interested in the history of Disneyland, but there wasn't really anywhere that I could point them to at the time. Sure. There were no podcasts, there were no books that were, made for kids, or there were even kids appropriate. I know most of the history books about Disneyland, even as a historian, sometimes I can be like, okay, this is like a little bit, it's a little bit verbose. It's a little bit more academic. So I was just really excited to create a podcast and then a book that was really accessible to people of all interests in history, whether that's someone that might be interested in a particular attraction or interested in kind of the whole story about how Disney parks were created.
So cool. You make me want to like even just hearing that, I'm like, I want to read it even more now. Like, it just sounds so cool. I'm so happy that you did this. And I think it was brilliant to make it, like you said, accessible for all ages. So whether you're, 8 years old or 80 years old, this is something that you could enjoy. I think that's really great.
What do you think? So, I've even before I did podcasts or anything like that, I've purchased a lot of books about Disneyland and stuff over the years and Imagineers and like all that. There is no shortage of books about Walt Disney, the Disney Company, Disneyland, Disney World, all of those topics. Why do you think that Disney, let's say, because we're a Disneyland podcast, why do you think there's like the topic of Disneyland and the history of Disneyland is so interesting for people? Because you don't see the same amount of books on even something that does have a great history like Knott's Berry Farm, or Universal, the original one in Hollywood, has a great history as well. You just don't, I feel like I don't see as many books and stuff and as many people enthusiastic about those books as you do with like Disneyland. Why do you think that is?
I think Disneyland is really, the story of Disneyland is so interesting because it's one that we can all relate to. It's a hero's journey. Walt had so many problems creating this land. It almost didn't happen several times, but he persevered. And I think a lot of people really identify with that and the fact that he persevered and this is his legacy. And that we, as fans and also the Imagineers that came after that, will continue to kind of push the boundaries and continue to try new things, even with the chance of failure. And I think we're seeing that now a little bit more. It's become a little bit more apparent that like things do fail at Imagineering and at the Walt Disney Company. I've worked there enough that I can definitely say that not everything that is on the drawing board, comes to fruition. But I think it's just kind of this enduring story. And, that was something that I really pulled out, because the book is for kids. It was really great to kind of communicate to them that like, it's okay to go after your dreams and fail a couple times and find out that you're going about it the wrong way and trying again. I think that that's something everyone can relate to.
Oh, yeah. It's a very, very important message. And it reminds me every once in a while I see shared like on social media or I'll see the poster or whatever. And it's just this little thing that says like, just remember Walt Disney was turned down. I don't remember how many times, a ridiculous amount of times before someone finally said yes and like took a chance on him. And it's Walt Disney. I mean, what if nobody would ever taken a chance? What if he would have after the first time been like, oh, well, I tried and just moved on? Like it's a very important story. And it's really amazing that he persevered just like that. So
I also think it's important as well to think that Walt Disney couldn't have done any of this by himself. And you see that with a lot of like large inventors like Steve Jobs. I'm a product manager in tech full-time, actually, and Steve Jobs is considered the world's best product manager because he didn't actually invent anything.
Yeah.
He just was able to motivate and inspire. And although Walt, of course, did contribute to Disneyland, it was really how he was able to put together a team and inspire them that gave us the park that we have today. So I think that's pretty cool too.
I make that comparison a lot because I'm an Apple fan. I like Apple, which is funny because in the beginning I hated Apple, but I like Apple now. And I equate Steve Jobs and Walt Disney together because they both did the same thing, which is people don't realize what their potential is until they're like forced to try to do it. And so often, and I feel like I'm sort of this way with sometimes with people will give you 100 reasons why you can't or shouldn't do something. And the people like Steve Jobs, like Walt Disney, always were like, why not? Like, why can't you do this impossible thing? Let's try. And then impossible things became possible. And so I think having that vision and that kind of attitude of like, sure, people say it can't be done, but let's try it anyway, because if it fails, it fails. But if it succeeds, that's really cool. And I think you see that with a lot of things. You see that with Pixar, the way they've done anime, the thought, well, traditional animation with Walt Disney, like making a feature-length animated film, that's not going to be successful. You're going to use computers to make animation, that's not going to be successful. So theme parks, nobody, even after it was built, nobody thought Disneyland was going to succeed, and now it's super popular. So that's a great perspective on that. And I think people don't think about that enough. So thank you.
So, Austin, you worked at the parks. You have a podcast on history. Are the two things related? Were you like super into Disney history pre becoming a cast member, or did that like just kind of like set you like down this path to kind of dig deeper and learn all of these stories?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've always been into history. I did study history in college and did a year at Oxford studying history as well. So I am a trained historian. I think that gets caught when I talk about writing a children's book. But yes, I did take a historian's eye. So I've always been really interested in history. I started in college because I was at Chapman. They were really great Southern California history kind of electives. So I did take some, but they were mostly like California before industry, like what we called Chicano history, which of course is now, called something more appropriate, and like Native American history, Hispanic history in Southern California. So that's kind of what I studied during college. And then it was only when I started working at the parks and I had to memorize history as part of my training for guest relations that I was kind of like, oh, this is pretty interesting. I also attended the Walt Disney Family Museum for the first time around the same time period. And I was like, wow, Walt is very different than what I thought he was. Because I always thought he was just like the successful guy who, became an animator and then made a theme park. And then, he was just a great businessman. But the story is pretty crazy, how he started his life in 1901 and then was an ambulance driver in World War I. And then just like a pretty interesting life. So that really got me interested in, learning more about the history.
So I know this could probably be a really complicated answer, but I'm just curious, when you're doing the research for all of this stuff, where do you go to find this information? I mean, obviously there's like other books and stuff, but beyond what's already been printed by someone else, where do you go to learn all of this information?
And to get the correct information. Because like you said, you can read some stuff and it's like, well, kind of.
Yeah.
So I saw this really amazing post the other day. I think it was on LinkedIn, but I'm sure it's made the rounds elsewhere, where it was like, history is written by the people that write history. So I think it's always good to refer to a history book by the name of the author. For instance, today, someone showed me a Walt Disney history book and was like, is this a good one? And I'm like, I don't know. What's the author's name? So I think because we weren't there, we really don't know a lot about Walt's early life because he was a starving artist in Kansas City. And we don't have a ton of records about his time there. So I think it's really about taking, kind of as a historian, what we do is we take a lot of books. Like, for instance, even though it's a children's book, you'll find I think 20 pages of sources for this book, mostly because I cover 100 years of history. But you kind of take a lot of different sources and you compare them and kind of think about the author as well and where they're coming from. I'm actually one of the few female historians in this space, which is kind of crazy. But the fact of the matter is all of this history is written about Disney is written by white males until this past 5 years. So it's just something to keep in mind, as you kind of review sources. I also ended up going to Kansas City and Marceline to kind of do research for the early part of the book because I really wanted to be, as clear as possible about what was going on. I've seen a lot of books that kind of just gloss over that time. And I think it's really important to remember that, he did go to amusement parks when he was a kid. I feel like that is completely lost in a lot of the stories that I read about Walt.
Yeah, it feels like he's just kind of, grumpy old man about it. Like, I'm sitting here eating popcorn on the bench while my kids play. There needs to be someplace better. But like, obviously as a kid, but then, you said this and I didn't know that because he was poor. So maybe he didn't go to amusement parks because he was poor, but apparently
he would climb over the fence.
Kids awesome. Don't do that at Disneyland.
But when someone did that at Disneyland on opening day, he was not very happy.
Right. Yeah.
I think as you get older, you realize like there's stuff you do as a kid and then you get grumpy about it as an adult. And then you're like, oh, yes, as a kid. But like you still don't want them doing it.
So tell us about your time in Marceline and what that experience was like being there and like kind of like being in the spot where this history you were studying was actually happening, right? Because it's one thing to just read about it. It's a totally different thing to go to the places.
And also tell us if it's worth it, because Teresa really wants 100%. To go to Marceline.
It's worth it. I'm sure it is.
Yes, Marceline, it's strange. So we went during very early on in COVID, August 2020. Mm-hmm. I was having a real trouble finding enough sources for this book because so many libraries were closed that I actually lost a ton of access to resources that otherwise, when I've done my podcast previously, were super available. Wow, I was used to having LA County. I used to call them up and they would they would scan, copies of things I need. But that was no longer possible because they weren't in the library. So we actually had to go on this road trip to kind of get some more sources. So we visited the Walt Disney Hometown Museum, which highly recommend. They're doing really incredible things. It's pretty much all volunteer run. And a lot of the volunteers actually met Walt when he had visited in the 60s.
Oh, how cool.
So it's pretty fun. And they have some really great artifacts at that museum. And then we went over to the farm. The farm is privately owned, but they will let you go to the barn that was erected by volunteers in 2005. And it's just interesting. You're like standing on this land and you're like, wow, this like inspired, one of the greatest artistic talents and businessmen, of the last 100 years. So it's very interesting. And it kind of still feels like a very small town. Like when we were there, they hadn't had a single COVID case. Like that just shows you how like remote the town is. But yeah, I would definitely recommend it, especially if you want to do St. Louis, Kansas City. It's right in the middle. So it's a great barbecue trip.
Wow, that's so cool. So for those of us, myself included, that really want to go, how long is it like a day trip? Do you plan a weekend? How long should you give yourself to be able to take in all of the sites?
Oh, you can see the sites in a couple hours.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we spent about a day there, and I was pretty meticulously documenting.
Good to know. Good to know. So you brought up something super interesting when we were talking about that you were trying to gather information for this book during the lockdown and like the shutdown. So yeah. So how, besides going to Marceline, how were you able to get sources and gather this information to put this book out? That's like something I didn't even think about, but sounds like a crazy uphill battle.
Yes, Kansas City Library really came in like in my clutch, or however you say it.
Yeah.
So I did do research at Kansas City Library. Ironically, this is a fun fact for no one but me, probably. But it's actually where Roy Disney used to work. It's the old bank in Kansas City. So he used to work there. So I was like researching him and his life in the same building that he used to work at. So
That's
I thought
cool.
that was pretty fun.
Oh, come on. That's pretty darn cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
The Disney history is very intertwined with Kansas City, which I don't think gets enough praise for their connection to the Disney brothers. But yeah, so I went to Kansas City. I also, a lot of theme park friends of mine loaned me their out of print books. which was very lovely. One of the major resources for this book was, I think it's called Disney, The Inside Story, which was published by the Walt Disney Company in the 70s. They actually say, coming soon, Splash Mountain. So really, really lovely book, very thoroughly researched and anonymous, actually. So I'm so lucky that someone gave that to me, because I do think it is out of print and it's quite expensive.
That's the hard thing with some of these books, right? They were only in print for a certain period. And now, like, if you're discovering them today and you go to try and find them, some of these are crazy expensive if you want to try and get a copy, even if it's a used copy. Crazy, like people has, torn pages or whatever, still crazy expensive. So yeah, that's very important to have. That was great of your friends. So thank you to the friends for lending some of these books out to you so you could put this together.
I feel really fortunate. They have the Disneyland, the art book. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's about Disneyland
the
Paris.
Penny card. Oh,
yes.
That one has been out of print forever. And like, I bought it when it was like in print on Amazon, like early 2000s, no big deal. And that and the penny, the nickel tour book, and both of those, you look for them now and they're like $400 or $500. I'm like, I'm very glad I have this book, and I bought it for a normal price.
Nobody even sneezed next to these books.
Yeah, well, they're gorgeous books too, and they have a lot of great information in them.
Yeah, I'd like to one day do like a theme park library. I think that would be really great, because a lot of the books are out of print, and when we lose books, we lose history.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to go back to your time as a guest relations cast member, and you said that you had to memorize some things for that position. How much and what do they expect you to kind of know? Obviously, you're not going to tell me everything, but just kind of give our listeners an idea of kind of the knowledge that they want you to have in that position, history-wise.
Guest relations training is about 30 days for City Hall.
Wow.
And then an additional like 5 to 6 days for every other role: lost and found, VIP viewings, info desks. So it is extremely long training, but very fun, because you get to, walk around and get paid to just walk around Disneyland and like point at things, basically. Although you get stopped a lot. So I would say in terms of history, they really just kind of expected us to know, the last 10 years, just in the sense of what was offered, but also, how Disneyland was created, like what was the stories. So I kind of touched on it in some of my books. I think in the Toontown chapter, I touch on it. So each land has a story that's appropriate to tell guests. So for Toontown, the idea is that it was originally always there, and we only opened up to the public in the 90s. Mickey always lived in Toontown. So we have to memorize stories like that. But yeah, it's just a position where everyone loves Disney. So most guest relations cast members will have a pretty strong sense of the history. And also, if you're trained as a tour guide, you'll also have to memorize all of that. I think the Walk in Walt's Footsteps tour, which is a pretty popular tour, I'm sure it will come back at some point. I think it was like a 55-page tour script.
Oh, wow.
They would have to memorize. So people would take that very seriously, and they would just go on their off days and just walk around the park with this giant binder.
Wow. I took that tour. I do hope that comes back, because Teresa, I think you would love this tour.
I want to go on all of them.
But I think they've changed it, because I think for a while, and you probably know this better than I do, but I think for a little while they had modified it where I feel like you got to go look in the Lily Bell. Mm-hmm. I think for a period of time they would take you up to Walt's apartment. I think it was one of the tours you could like look in, like they wouldn't take you into, but like they'd open the door and be like, you can look inside quick. I didn't take that one. I took the one that was, you met at the tour gardens, and they walked you around the park and pointed out things. And one of the surprising things, I don't think it's still there, but at the time, the foundation for the House of the Future was still there, and it was like hidden by some like foliage, and he like pulled back a section, and it was painted green, and it was this giant concrete slab of a base. And there was this story that went with it, that when they tried to get rid of it, they had brought a wrecking ball, because it was made out of plastic, and the wrecking ball hit it and bounced off and almost took the castle out. Ooh. And I was like, wow. Also, that tour gives me the time. We'll see if I can tell the story quick without me crying, because it was very touching. Was they talked about the partner statue, and it was Walt saying to Mickey and pointing out over Disneyland, "Look what we've created together." And I just thought that was so touching. And I was like, "Oh my god!" And then I had to try to explain to my family who didn't take the tour. I was telling them about the tour, and I was recounting this, and I was like, "I'm getting all verklempt just trying to recount it to you," but it's just one of those things. I don't know. I feel like I should have a question, but now I feel like I've just rambled on about something forever.
I think the question was, is that still there? And I do think it still is.
Okay.
Ooh.
I almost put it in the book, but I had to cut the House of the Future, I think, because it was also, I thought kids would think it would be really, really weird if like they were like having an exhibit at Disneyland that showcased like flat screen TVs. Like, but yeah, I do think I cut House of the Future, but I almost put in there that you could see the foundation.
You had a similar question in your paperwork that you sent to us, to like some ideas, but I'm going to kind of tweak it. So, as a historian, what is an attraction that was at Disneyland that you miss or wish was still there that it has gone into Yesterland? Because your question was about Disney World, so I'm tricking you with Disneyland here.
Yeah, because Disney World has had a lot more attractions go into Yesterland. So let's see. I'm trying to think of a Disneyland park one, because I can think of one in DCA. But I think that's kind of a cop-out.
No, DCA is fine. It's all part of the resort.
Yeah.
It was Superstar Limo, wasn't it? No.
Luckily, I never went on that one.
Me either.
Let's see. I would say, yeah, probably Heimlich's Choo-Choo Train.
Yes.
Because that was just like, it was so cute.
Well, now you're just pandering to me, because I also love that attraction. It was so silly, but it was
so
endearing.
Cute. Yeah, it was
as someone that's walked around the backstage of California Adventure, they didn't need to get rid of Bugsland.
Yeah.
No.
There's so much space behind Tower.
Yeah.
Behind Guardians.
Mm-hmm.
We all say that.
Actually, I should say Tower. I missed the original Tower. I loved Tower of Terror.
The one thing I still have a hard time, I do enjoy Guardians. I do I think it's a more fun ride. Like, 'cause I just laugh hysterically the entire time that you're bouncing around in the attraction vehicle. But the thing that I just can't get over is I don't like it aesthetically, because it's really difficult for me to look down the street of this like mid-century specific looking thing and have the funky tower.
But it landed,
in the corner.
Teresa. It came out of space.
I know, but I like the goo. I also very much like the space goo that they've added. But it's just aesthetically, it doesn't fit for me still. Whereas the tower did, even though it was like, looked like it run down and had been struck by lightning and wasn't pretty like Carthay is, it still fits.
Yeah. I missed I liked the interior of it better too. I agree with you. The one thing ride vehicle wise that I liked better about Tower was I loved the effect that as your gantry lift now gets pulled, like backs up from the door, it used to like dissolve into the stars. And I thought that was such a cool effect. And now it's just rocket, like, you
can clearly see the path of the
So I liked that better, but I do think I think that people that don't like drop rides and stuff like that, I think that they would enjoy Guardians more than they would of Tower.
Sure.
Because it's more playful. I agree with you. It's like more playful.
I like the overlay too. I thought that was clever when they did the Halloween overlay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I feel like it seems right to the naive park goer. Oh, that's probably a very simple thing. I wish they would do more of these little fun overlays. Like we did Mater's, I forget what it is, Jingle Jamboree or something. There's a holiday themed overlay for Mater's. There's a holiday themed overlay.
But that's easy. It's just change the music, yeah.
Right. But then like all the decorations, all that, you're like, oh, this is really easy. No, like that's not easy. It takes a lot of work. So I think it's really cool that they do it for Guardians and like flip it halfway through the day even.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So I don't want you to spoil our book because I'm looking forward to reading it myself. So I don't want you to like give too much away, but can you just give us a little taste? Is there maybe a favorite story or a thing that you like to share from the book to kind of give us a little taste of what to expect when we pick these up?
I'll kind of start at the beginning. So kind of the structure of the book is really the first couple chapters. I think the first 4 chapters are about Walt Disney's life. So you follow in his footsteps from being a small town boy in Marceline to, becoming an unsuccessful animator and then a successful animator and then founding Disneyland. So that's just the first 4 chapters. No big deal. So we go pretty quick, but I do think what was interesting is kind of Disney fans, I think their favorite fact to say is Walt loved trains. I don't know if you guys heard this, but it's kind of like a joke at this point. It's like the number one Walt Disney fact is he loved trains.
Yeah.
But in the book, we actually dive into like his obsession with trains and like how that kind of fuels him. So I think the first 4 chapters, that's just like really common theme. Like Walt was always around trains. His uncle, Mike, I believe, was a locomotive engineer, and he actually became working on the railroads for an entire summer when he was 15. And he just always really loved trains, but he kind of forgot about this passion for trains because he was so busy being an animator and, making the first animated film that I think it was 48, he went to his animator's friend, Ward Kimball's house, and he saw that he had a train in his backyard. And he was like, oh, my God, this is awesome. And he completely forgot about the party. He made Ward drive him around on the train all night, which I guess is pretty rude to go over to someone's house. But he loved it. And then a couple months later, he convinced Ward to go to the Chicago Railroad Fair in 1948, which was the last great locomotive fair ever. And they just had the best time. They were just growing out at this railroad fair. And he came back, and on the train back, he was like, I'm going to make a place that's going to be awesome like this. And he was like, okay. And he just kept talking about it. And then of course that place would later become Disneyland. His first ever memo describing a theme park like place was sent right after that trip.
Oh,
wow.
Oh, wow.
So what do you think? So the railroad has changed over the years. Because as a child, when I used to go, I would there was a very distinct kind of shape to Disneyland. And over the years, when Toontown was unveiled to the masses, it changed. Of course, it changed quite drastically when they shortened the Rivers of America and Galaxy's Edge landed back there. What do you think? What do you think Walt would think about the changes of the railroad? Because it changed even when he was there. Because in the beginning, and you can attest to this through your history, in the beginning, people don't realize that the train would go all the way around. Not like today where it would stop everywhere. There was 2 tracks at the stations, and they would go around them, right?
Yeah, there was no stations.
Yeah, so
except for Main Street,
right? It's just crazy, that's how it was.
Yeah,
I don't
so
know.
100% was an attraction, and not just a mode.
So, what do you think Walt would think of how the train is today? And I think he'd just be happy that it's still operating, because it's one of those things. I feel like the Disney company, I'm sure it's expensive to maintain because you're maintaining these things. You have people that have. There's not that many people that have this specialized knowledge that you have to find and want to work there and are local, and that you can get to do this. It's crazy.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I think he would just, be happy that the train is still operating. Walt and all of his different plans for Disneyland, obviously it was originally Mickey Mouse Park, which we touch on in the book. But in all of his plans for his theme park, he always envisioned it as encircled by a train. So I think he would just be happy, that it's still there. And I think the improvements that they made during the Galaxy's Edge renovation, I think that was cool. The waterfall is really lovely. So I do think that they added some scenic elements versus seeing kind of the edge of the buildings like you used to be able to see on the side there at the north side of the park. And
you get the murder beavers. I like the murder beavers.
Yes.
that what they're called?
That's what I've seen them referred to online, and I always call them that now, because if you're on the Mark Twain going by where the train bridge is, or the canoes, any watercraft that are in the back there's these beavers eating the train bridge, and these trains are going over, and they don't know, like, if the beavers keep eating it, that train's going to go.
A fun fact, actually, about, like, this train and how you said that they're real steam engines, actually. So they never pulled a permit in Orange County for them to have steam engines at Disneyland. So they were operating an unlicensed train until, I think, 60 something. So when they went to build a mine train through Nature's Wonderland, actually, I think it was the original mine train, not through Nature's Wonderland, but yes, the original mine train, which preceded Big Thunder Mountain, they pulled a permit to have a steam train run around Nature's Wonderland. That was the entire idea. And then Orange County is like, do you have two other steam trains, Casey Jr. Circus Train and the other trains operating? So they did not get the permit. And that's why lots of people thought that the original mine train attraction was very slow and boring because they weren't able to use steam power.
But they just grandfathered in, kept operating the railroad for however long.
Yeah, I feel like they couldn't. I feel like they were like, okay, we'll give you these two, but you cannot operate another one.
2 is your limit.
And that's when Walt Disney said, I'm going to buy a bunch of stuff out in Florida. We're going to create our own government. And we don't have to deal with this. It was probably
around the same time, to be honest.
We don't have to deal with this. We're gonna approve our own stuff. We're going to have the Reedy Creek Improvement District, and
we're going to have all the steam trains we want. Nobody can tell us no. That's great. That's super great. So, can you tell us about your podcast? Because your podcast is also named Fast Pass to the Pass. So, is it kind of is the book kind of an extension of that, or what is the difference between the podcast and the book? And tell us more about the podcast in general.
I think the book is really more of a survey, to use the technical term, of 100 years of Disneyland history. The way the book kind of works, I hinted at it earlier, but the first 4 chapters are more of like a story. And then I tell the story of each land. So chapter 5, I believe, is the story of Adventureland. It goes through each attraction at Adventureland and how it's kind of evolved over the years. So my podcast is a little bit more specific, a little bit more granular. I've done podcast episodes about the lost resorts of Disney World, where I've talked about each resort and why it never actually, was built. I've also done podcasts on other theme parks. So I'm an equal fan of all theme parks. So I actually do have an episode on Knott's Berry Farms and Universal Studios Hollywood. So I do cover other theme parks, which I think is really fun, because when I was reading up on Universal Orlando, which was one of the podcast episodes a couple seasons ago, I found out that Disney had stolen the original plans for Universal Orlando. So it kind of was a great way to, tie these two theme parks together. And I don't know if I would have found that out had I just looked at Disney World resources.
Oh yeah, because clearly they're not gonna tell anybody about that. But Universal's like, oh no, we did not forget, and the world needs to know. That's great.
They definitely did not forget.
Wow, that's very cool.
And that's probably why Hollywood Studios has been reinvented so many times, because it was never actually a Disney theme park. It was a stolen plan for another theme park.
Well, and that makes total sense, because I don't know how many different people think that oh yeah, no, I went to Walt Disney World, and I went to, Disney World, and then I went to Epcot, the one with the ball and all the different countries. And then I went to the Universal one. It's like, no, so that would explain why
people show up at Disney World all the time and wonder where Harry Potter stuff is. It's like,
there's that too.
That's a real question. That was a real question when I worked in guest relations.
Yeah.
Where's Hogwarts?
But when it was still like the MGM, everybody thought, for whatever reason, everyone was convinced that was Universal, even though, as we know, it's not. It's not the same thing. It was different, but there's a little something to that, apparently.
I feel like Disney just needs to keep making Disney stuff, because when they've tried to branch out and do other people's things, I feel like Disneyland-centric, that's California Adventure, right? It's like, we don't want people to leave our resort and go see the rest of the state. we're going to bring the whole state to you in this one theme park. And it wasn't very successful because people don't come to Disneyland to see California. People come to Disneyland to see Disney stuff. Mm-hmm. There weren't a lot of characters. There weren't, of course you get the whole cheaping out with like roller coasters and stuff that weren't really Disney quality. But like once Disney started making that Disney and they added Cars Land and like more themed attractions, it's become really popular. And, we have people that listen to the podcast that's actually their favorite park between the two, which I don't understand, but they do. So like more power to them. Like, I think that's great.
So, I loved working in Disney California Adventure with guest relations. It was just so fun. People are so much chiller over there.
It does have a different like vibe, doesn't it?
Why do you think that is?
Alcohol.
Which is funny because I would think that people would drink too much and then you deal with them being ridiculous.
Honestly, the drinks are so expensive that it was so rare.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Drunk and have to be removed.
That would be, what was it when we were at the festival booth? It was like $15 for that tiny little whatever thing. That's a lot of money to be.
So
unless you're drinking beer, I don't think you can possibly get drunk at Disney California Adventure.
Do you have a memory or a story or something from working as a guest relations cast member that you like think back on fondly that you'd like to share?
Yeah, definitely. I think the best part of guest relations was, well, there was a lot of really good parts, but I would say one of the best parts was being able to, as we say, recover guests that had a bad experience at Disneyland and, are distraught, because we were able to kind of turn that around for them and give them a magical vacation. So, for instance, I think I was at Disney California Adventure, actually, at Chamber of Commerce, and this little girl came in. She was dressed in like a Tangled outfit, and she was bawling, literally falling. And I was like, oh no one should cry at Disney. So her parents came in. They were also pretty upset. They had lost their 3-day park hopper tickets that they bought at Costco. And they had lost them because the little girl had them on a lanyard around her neck and the lanyard went missing. So obviously she felt like she had destroyed their entire vacation, and she was like a 6-year-old. So we were actually able to recover the tickets because they took photos on the back. Everyone always take photos of the back of your tickets if they're not, digital and linked to your account, because that way we can actually reprint them at Disneyland Guest Relations. So we're able to reprint them. And, obviously this girl is distraught. Like, it doesn't matter that the tickets were recovered. She feels so bad about losing them in the first place. We were actually able to walk her over to Disneyland where the parade was about to start and get her VIP view. And Elsa actually waved at her because she saw the dress. And then I got a letter in the mail a couple weeks later, and the mom said that she was so excited and she kept talking about the parade for the next 10 days. And she told everyone at school that Elsa was her best friend. And I don't know, it's just it's nice to be able to do that for people and give people really special memories, together as families, even when they had a bad experience to start.
Wow, that's pretty.
That
pretty
ticket
magical
stuff is hard though, because I've been through that experience. We were there with some friends, and one of the kids. We got out of California Adventure. We had park hoppers. We got out of California Adventure. We sat in the Esplanade to watch the fireworks that had just started, and then we went to go into Disneyland. And one of the kids had lost their ticket, and we looked everywhere and couldn't find it. And so we went to the guest relations booth outside of DCA, and they said, what was it? Blah, blah. And I explained, I said, we have all the same tickets. Here's my ticket. We're all on this thing. He lost his somewhere. After after talking with them for a while, they gave us a one night, here, you can go into Disneyland. Because it was 7:00 at night or something. It's how much value are you going to get out of it if you are trying to get one over on us or whatever. And then we checked back because they said, check back when you leave, and maybe something will have been turned in. And we got lucky because when we left for the night, we went over there and somebody had turned the ticket in and we got it back. But I don't know what we would have done because it wasn't we still had a day or two left of the trip. And it's
that was pre app and pre digital tickets and all that. So
this was 2006, I want to say. And so, I mean, it was the guest relations cast member was great. And I'm glad that they were able to get us into the park. But I don't even know how you deal with stuff because people probably lose their tickets all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, less now because I feel like a lot of people sync it with their app and everything, and then you just have to worry about is their cell phone network or the Wi-Fi working or whatever.
So, yeah, the way that we did it pre-app, so I don't know how they do it now, is the only way to find a missing ticket is to look at the barcodes of the entire party's ticket and then hope that they're in the middle.
Oh, yeah, because it all like print out together, yeah.
But if they're at the end, you kind of like look and you're like, this was purchased in Idaho. That's not them.
Yeah.
Because when you reprint, you invalidate another ticket. So you have to be sure so you don't accidentally invalidate, some poor family in Idaho's ticket. So that's how we used to do it. I kind of liked it. I liked doing tickets because it felt like Sherlock Holmes. I was like typing the computer. I felt really cool. And then like the people would be looking at me with like disdain. They're like, why can't you just make this happen? I'm like, I'm working on it.
Yeah. I'm trying. I promise.
I mean, I guess there's never a point that you like put a name with it because
that's why.
Because I was like, why can't you just search for the name? Oh, there is no name. Yeah. I mean, they take your picture, but you're not going to sit there and go through the 40,000 people who came in the gate that day. Like, hold on, I'll stop when it's you.
It's honestly good that that I, just like a random person with no supervision, can't access your email, phone number,
yeah.
That's true,
first name, and payment info.
Yeah.
So I guess it kind of is good in that sense.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that either. So yeah, you just gotta hope the barcodes match up and that you guess and get the right one.
So
just always take a picture.
Yeah,
on your phone.
Honestly, I find it so cool and so fascinating that you just dove in head first, got all of this information and put it together into this book. So with this book, you've got people like Tag and I that are Disney nerds, but then you also have people that maybe this is their first time or maybe they've never been to the parks before. What kind of audience, besides age, would this book be appropriate for?
I mean, I really tried to make this book appropriate for everyone. For instance, I was on another interview a couple weeks ago, and they had read some of the book, and they said, I have been doing Disney podcasting for a decade, and I've read everything, and I never knew how tall Walt Disney was.
Oh!
How tall is Walt Disney?
I think he's like 5'9". Like, he's not that tall. So it was like, it's like there are things in the book that even if you know the story of Disney, you're going to find out things that you never knew about or never knew to look up. And it really kind of adds to the appreciation of the place. And then there are people that have never been to a Disney park that are friends with me, and they bought the book and they've really enjoyed, reading about the story. Because, I mean, if you've been to the park, haven't been to the park, Disney has touched your life in some way. And it's interesting to learn about, how it became this phenomenon. Like, same reason we read Fortune magazine or watch Steve Jobs documentaries. Like, this has impacted all of our lives, whether or not we've been to the parks or not. And since the first 4 chapters are really about Walt's life, but told in a way that it is, entertaining, I think a lot of people have, enjoyed learning about how kind of Disney has become this huge influence in all of our lives, because we do touch on that as well. Like Bob Iger is in the book. I think Chapek is mentioned briefly, but he's not really in the book.
That's okay. I think right now he's probably happy not to be talked about.
Yeah. He's like, I'm just gonna do my thing, people. Yeah. No, that's great to know, because I was just thinking of some like young family members of mine. I am getting married at Disneyland in the springtime, and so I was just thinking about how we've enjoyed trips to the park together, and a couple of them are, kind of, in that age that reading's like fun and exciting, or even maybe this is something the younger ones could be read to by their parents, because they're starting to get that like hunger for it. They think the attractions are cool. They think the movies are fun, but, the history isn't, that's not really something they're exploring yet. But I think this sounds like a very good and very like accessible and easy thing for them to kind of get into it.
Well, I think reading something like this before you go the first time would be great, because 2 personal stories. One, James says that he appreciates Disneyland so much more now that he's been involved with the podcast and learned things through trivia and stuff, because like he can look through it and realize that it's not just like an amusement park, right? It's not just like another place you go and there's rides and whatever. There's like a lot of history and a lot of things that obviously your book, I'm sure, would cover, and stuff that maybe we don't even know about, that would be interesting, that you can walk by and see something and be like, wow, I would walk by this and not think anything of it, but actually it's really has some historical significance. The other person was Kacper, who was our exchange student 2 years ago from Poland. He didn't ever hear of Disneyland, didn't know what it was. He thought it was a museum.
That's right.
And so when he went, he's like, oh, like, this is so, like, and he loved it. And when he comes back, like, his thing is, like, anytime he comes here, he wants to go to Disneyland and all this stuff. So, like, it worked. But
you converted him.
But if he would have read that before, then he would have, like, known what to expect, kind of, and they could have enjoyed it more. Most people will go when they like attractions and rides and stuff like that, and the shows and the parades. Like, that's what most people think about. But like James brings up, there's so much more to Disneyland. Like, there's so much audio animatronics, the Tiki Room. Like, most people would be like, well, this is a dumb bird show that, like, some of the animatronics are a little weird. But when you know the history, there's like an appreciation that comes with it, which is why that attraction is still there and so popular and everything.
It's funny when you're talking about that. I was thinking about, like, I just get this weird kick about walking past, the Coke corner, and looking at the bulb that is half yellow or half red, half clear, because they wanted it to be uniform, and the bulbs weren't going to match up. So they would have had two of one color in a row, and they just couldn't have that. So they made this little half painted bulb so that it would be,
and every
more
time
uniform.
It goes out, somebody's got to half paint that bulb again.
But like the attention to detail. I mean, how many people would have been like, oh, look at that, they have two clear bulbs together, how terrible, we need to leave. Nobody's paying that some people are, but normal people aren't paying that close attention to notice. So I think that's so interesting. And so if they're that concerned about a bulb, then it's just that more amazing, all of the detail and the care and the everything that goes into even the smallest things.
Is there oh, sorry, go ahead.
I also think what's interesting about the book is the sense of, like, the reason why it works for people that have never been to the parks is because I really do believe Disney, is a reflection of, society in the US. Like, it has seen so many things, and it's been influenced by so many major events. Like, for instance, Walt Disney was an ambulance driver at the end of World War I. I'll give him that, but it was kind of after World War I. And then, Hawaii's statehood really influenced, how they started thinking about adding, the enchanted tiki birds. And then, of course, the space age influenced Tomorrowland. So a lot of these, events that kids are learning about in school really did shape the theme park map. So that's something I really tried to, put in the book so that kids could be like, oh, I've heard of World War I. Like, oh, it influenced Disneyland? Like, I thought we just went there to meet Spider-Man.
That's awesome.
Is there something that you researched and found that you, for whatever reason, had to cut from the book that you think is interesting that you'd like to share?
The book is 200 something pages, so I definitely didn't cut that much, but at some point I needed to kind of cut things. Oh, I would say probably Holidayland. Holidayland was a picnic village kind of thing. It's actually where the Mickey Mouse Club first started, in a circus tent in Holidayland. Also, it was the only place you could drink at Disneyland. So yes, there was drinking at Disneyland. I don't know where people thought that Walt would roll over in his grave with Galaxy's Edge. But yes, that was Holidayland. Holidayland didn't make it in the book. I thought it would be kind of weird. I really wanted it to be in the book, though. But luckily, I do have a podcast episode if you're interested in Holidayland. It's quite this bizarre 4-year history of this like picnic land that Disneyland had. Yeah, I wanted Holidayland to be in there. I just felt like kids wouldn't really have it. Like, I think kids just like, unless you can, I think with kids, unless you can like see something and you're like, this used to be that, it's understandable. But I think like, oh, land used to be here. They'd be like, what? I don't know
like,
what that is.
Blank space, what? Yeah.
Because that's like where part of the tram route and stuff is now, right? Like,
yeah,
on that side of the park, kind of behind,
and like Haunted Mansion area. There is a candy cane in between the Indiana Jones show building and on stage to mark where it started. In the backstage area. It's not that cool. It's just a candy cane, but it's random and no one knows why it's there unless they know Holidayland.
Well, come on. That's pretty cool that they have the marker or the reminder, even if a lot of people like, did someone not put away the holiday decor? Why is this
people do think
hanging out?
Some cast member like takes it and like brings it somewhere, and they're
you
like,
need to put this away.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I want to make sure that we let everyone know, if they're interested in checking out your book, where are the different places that they can find it, or where can they purchase it?
Obviously, the easiest place to purchase it is Amazon. It's available in paperback and Kindle. It's also available on barnesandnoble.com. If you're more of a Nook reader, which I don't think most people are, but if you are, it is there. And it's also on Apple Books if you are, more of an Apple aficionado. And then you can also, it is available for bookstores to order. So if you want to support your local bookstore, just give them a call and then just look up the ISBN, which is on my website, and give it to them and they will order you a copy. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to. So if you want to support your local bookstores, that's a great way to do it as well.
That's
awesome.
Very cool. I didn't know about that. And of course, we're going to have the link in our show notes, as we always do. One last question regarding getting the book. So we have, I know, right, there's a whole community within the Disney community that's collectors. And so they like books, obviously, Disneyland books. But is there a way that they can order directly from you so that they can get a signed copy, or maybe not yet?
Not yet. I'm still trying to figure out that scenario without having to keep 100 books.
Yeah, nope, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
They can message me on Instagram and I can kind of do it one-off. My Instagram is Fast Pass to the Past.
Well, Austin, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing stuff about your book and a little bit of history and a little bit of Disneyland. And we definitely want to have you on in the future to talk about your guest relations journey, because I'm sure that our listeners... And Fantasyland. I'm sure that our listeners would love to hear about all of those stories, because we've never had a guest relations cast member on, so that will be wonderful. We did have an ambassador, but not a guest relations cast member. So as we wrap up, we're going to ask you the final question. If you could work at Disneyland again, in your case, what would you do? This could be the sky's the limit. You can make up a role, or you can pick a role that's actually something that you could apply for right now.
I feel like I limited myself by getting an MBA. So
sky's the limit. They don't care about your education.
I would be back in TDA, which is the Team Disney building that you see on the freeway. Probably doing something not super fun, like finance or marketing.
You know what?
Marketing is fun.
We had somebody on that he works in accounting for Disney Plus. Fascinating. Like, you wouldn't it sounds like, oh, boring numbers. No, like, fascinating. So I feel like there is no boring role at Disney.
Well, what was funny about him is he was telling stories about, like, we talked to him after WandaVision had come out, and he was like, I know something's got to be coming because I've seen the budget for this show, and these first few episodes, this is not the budget that they have for this. Something is coming, and then of course it did. So then it was like, okay,
yeah. My last role at Disney wasn't back when I worked at guest relations. I actually was an MBA intern at Disney last year, and I actually just stopped work on the book for 4.5 months to not have a conflict of interest.
Oh yeah,
working at the Walt Disney Company. So I worked in strategy at Freeform. So I worked on last year's Halloween, 31 nights of Halloween, and then 25 days of Christmas. So
fun.
That's what I worked on there. That was my most recent role.
That's like all I know about Freeform is like their 25 days of Christmas and 31 days of Halloween. Like, I don't ever watch them.
You're not the target audience.
No. No, but then when the days, like, it always comes out, and I feel like we talk about it on the podcast sometimes, like what's coming up for those times, because people love watching that stuff. I feel like it's different now, though, because Disney Plus is out there. So a lot of those things you can just watch on Disney Plus without being
That was a big part of my job.
Yeah, Disney Plus has changed so much stuff.
Yes.
I'm so glad it's around.
It's okay. I'll be the only weekly tier without an answer. Make sure you send your questions to Producer James or Producer Vern at trivia@DLWeekly.net.
Well, we are on our way back to Trivia Land to chat with Eon this week to find out this week's correct answers, just in case James and I didn't get us there this time.
I'm
feeling pretty good.
All of them.
I'm feeling pretty good overall. I'm a little iffy on the Pirates one. But other than that, I'm pretty confident.
Oh,
How do we do, Eon?
So, on the question, who is the captain of Star Speeder on Star Tours? The correct answer is Rex.
Rex is the captain? Is it the overall Star Speeder?
Yep.
That was a trick question.
That was. I should have gone with my hopes and dreams.
Well, we're off to a bad start.
Yep. So for the question, which attraction did Winnie the Pooh's adventure replace? The correct answer is Country Bear Jamboree.
Woo! Good job, James.
Oh, thank you. I should have thought of the Easter egg. It's so obvious once you said it. And I love that ride.
For the question, how many audio animatronics are on the ride Pirates of the Caribbean, including people and animals? The correct answer is 128.
Woo!
Yay,
Good job,
Teresa.
Yay!
And last one, other than alcohol, you can purchase this in the park. The right answer was gum.
Woohoo!
Yeah. I knew at least one thing for sure on my own.
Well, thank you, Eon, for being so kind to us this week for trivia. Not only did we get questions that we had an idea on, but we even had multiple choice. You were like extra nice to us this week. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe Vern and I will have to be influenced by this. Or maybe the listeners can learn from his kindness and take that too when they submit questions to us. Mm-hmm. Producer Vern and I, well, hopefully one of us is back next week. You can send us trivia emails. It's trivia@DLWeekly.net.
Well, we will be back next week with more Disneyland news and information.
Until then, go out and enjoy the parks.
Please remain seated until the podcast comes to a complete stop and the doors have opened. Then collect your belongings, watch your head, and step carefully from the episode. On behalf of all of our crew, thanks for traveling with us. And we hope you have a happy and memorable visit here at DL Weekly.